Okay, let's jump right in. We've got some really fascinating source material here today, all focusing on one incredible figure. We're talking Dr. Bhimrao Ramji Ambedkar.
Exactly. The sources really, they paint this picture of someone who was just fundamentally transformative, a real champion for equality, gave India its constitution.
And a voice, right, a voice for millions who'd basically been silenced.
Absolutely. So our mission really is to go through this material, trace his journey right from the start, and pull out the key insights for you. Let's begin there with his early life.
Where do the sources start us off?
Well, he was born April 14th, 1891, Mahau, which is now in Madhya Pradesh. But the key thing the sources immediately point out is his background. Born into the Mahar caste.
And that context is crucial, isn't it? Because the Maihar caste was considered untouchable then. The sources show this shaped everything, even though his father was actually an army officer. You'd think that might offer some buffer.
Apparently not. Not from that kind of deep systemic prejudice. The sources give really stark examples, things he faced as a kid, like having to sit separately in school, sometimes outside the classroom entirely.
Wow.
Yeah. Or, not being allowed to use the public water taps. Just basic things everyone else took for granted. Constant unfair treatment.
It's hard to even imagine that directed at a child.
Yeah.
So what do the sources say about how he dealt with that? Because obviously it didn't break him, especially his desire for education.
That's where his perseverance really shines through the material. Instead of being crushed, he saw education as the way out. He managed to get a degree from Bombay University, which, for someone from his community at that time, was already a massive achievement.
But he didn't stop there, did he? The sources show his story really takes off globally. He won a scholarship. Think about that, how rare that must have been.
Incredibly rare. And that took him abroad. First stop, Columbia University in the U.S. for an MA and a PhD.
And
then on to London School of Economics, added a DSc and a law degree there.
So we're talking multiple advanced degrees from top-tier universities across, well, 2 continents. The sources really emphasize this wasn't just personal ambition. He became one of the most highly educated Indians of his time.
And critically, the first from his community to get that kind of global academic recognition, that intellectual firepower, forged in the face of such adversity. It's a major theme in the sources.
Definitely. And it wasn't just academic exercise, right? The sources show this education gave him the tools for the huge fight ahead when he returned to India, a fight against social injustice.
He came back with degrees, sure, but also this burning sense of purpose, shaped by everything he'd seen and studied. And the sources show he dived straight into activism, launched newspapers.
Right, like Muk Nayak, leader of the voiceless, and Bahishkrit Farah excluded India, using media to raise awareness.
Exactly. And he wasn't just writing. He was organizing. The sources detail things like the Chavdar Lake Satyagraha in 1927. That was direct action.
Demanding access to public water for Dalits, wasn't it?
Precisely. Challenging a really potent symbol of their exclusion. It was about basic human rights.
And this kind of fierce advocacy for equal rights, for representation within British India, it put him right at the center of things, often in complex ways with other leaders. The sources trace this path leading up to the Pune Pact with Gandhi.
Yeah, 1932. And the sources frame this as a really critical negotiation, about political power, about how the depressed classes would be represented in the India that was coming. His relentless push before independence was laying groundwork.
Which leads us perfectly into his role after India actually gained independence in 47. This is huge. He was appointed chairman of the Constitution Drafting Committee.
And you can see how his massive academic background was just essential there. The sources mentioned he studied the constitutions of something like over 60 countries.
Wow, imagine trying to synthesize all that for a brand new, incredibly diverse nation.
It's mind-boggling. And the result was, of course, the Indian Constitution, adopted in 1950. The sources make it absolutely clear he was the chief architect.
And what about the core ideas he embodied in it? The sources must highlight those.
Oh, absolutely. The foundational values really jump out. Liberty, equality, fraternity, justice. For him, these weren't just, nice philosophical ideas. They were the direct answer to the caste system, to the discrimination he'd fought his whole life. He was building the legal foundation for a democratic India based on principles that totally contradicted the old social order.
But his work didn't stop with just drafting the Constitution. He had a political career, too, India's first law minister.
That's right. But the sources also point to a really key moment showing his principles came first. He resigned from Nehru's cabinet.
Over the Hindu Code
Uh,
Bill, right.
exactly. He saw those reforms modernizing Hindu personal law, especially around women's rights. Inheritance is fundamental for social equality.
Hmm.
His resignation proved he wouldn't compromise on that, even from a top position.
And he kept pushing outside government, too. Founded the Scheduled Castes Federation, then later the Republican Party of India, always working through politics for the communities he represented.
And woven through all this, the sources also track his deeper intellectual and spiritual path. He became deeply influenced by Buddhism.
Leading to that incredibly powerful statement, I was born a Hindu, but I will not die a Hindu.
A statement he backed up with action. In 1956, there was that historic event in Nagpur. The sources describe him converting to Buddhism.
And hundreds of thousands of his followers converted with him, right? Over 500,000.
Yes, something like 500,000 people. It was this massive public rejection of the caste hierarchy and an embrace of what he saw as the equality and dignity within Buddhism.
He passed away not long after that, December 6, 1956. But his impact, I mean, it was already immense. And it's only grown since, hasn't it?
Undeniably, the recognition kept coming. Posthumously awarded the Bharat Ratna in 1990, India's highest civilian honor.
A fitting tribute.
And today, the sources show he's revered, quite rightly, as the father of the Indian Constitution. That title alone speaks volumes. But his significance, as you read through this material, is even broader. He's seen as a global symbol for social justice.
Absolutely. His ideas on equality, dignity, fighting for justice, they aren't just Indian issues. They echo everywhere people face similar struggles. The sources really lay out his life as a kind of blueprint for challenging power.
It's more than just history, isn't it? It's a demonstration of what intellectual power, combined with just sheer moral courage, can achieve against enormous odds.
So when you step back and look at all these sources, the life of Dr. Ambedkar, what's the takeaway for you? It feels like more than one man's story. It feels like, well, a revolution captured on paper.
Yeah, it really does. It tracks this incredible transformation from being deemed untouchable to literally writing the laws of a nation, from representing a community forced into silence to defining the core values of a new republic. It's epic. Exclusion to empowerment.
And that journey, it still inspires people today, doesn't it? Not just in India, but globally, wherever people fight for basic dignity against unfair systems.
Absolutely. So maybe as you reflect on this deep dive, here's something to think about, drawing from these sources. Considering the kind of intense personal discrimination Ambedkar faced right from childhood, what does his journey becoming the chief architect of a constitution, leading a mass movement, tell you about the power, maybe the limitless power of education and just relentless advocacy to actually dismantle hierarchies that seem totally immovable?